Hey guys, DC here, coming at you with another video. I've been thinking a lot lately about what will be the Pokemon game to come after Pokemon Winds and Waves. Prior to Pokemon coming to the Nintendo Switch, we had a pretty clear timeline as to what game would come when, right? We would always get our typical generational titles, your Ruby and Sapphires, your Diamond and Pearls of the world, and then following those games, you would get your third version, your Emeralds, your Platinums of the world, and then if it was a remake generation, we get a remake title like Fire Red and Leaf Green or Heart Gold and Soul Silver. But since Pokemon has made the jump to the Nintendo Switch, things have changed. Things are no longer the same as they were back then. We now get a new generational title like Sword and Shield, like Scarlet and Violet, followed by a game that maybe we weren't expecting. In the case of Sword and Shield, we all thought we were going to get Diamond and Pearl remakes next, and while that did happen in the form of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, it was in a very different form than we all thought it was going to happen in. Not only did we get that though, we also got Pokemon Legends Arceus, a brand new open world like Pokemon adventure that we've really never seen before in the franchise. Well, for Scarlet and Violet for Generation 9, everyone was expecting Black and White remakes. Everyone was expecting the next game in the Pokemon franchise to be Generation 5 related. And what do? They make a sequel to Pokemon X and Y and Pokemon Legends ZA, and that's what comes after Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So needless to say, this is probably the most unpredictable time we've ever had in this franchise. So that begs the question, what game is going to come next after Pokemon Winds and Waves? And I've made a lot of videos speculating on what could be next, like what will the next Legends game be? We knew it was supposed to be Legends Galar at one point due to the Terra leak information that's out there. I'll leave a card up above to that video if you don't know what I'm talking about. But there have been some more recent rumblings and reports that maybe that's not actually the game that we're going to get after Winds and Waves, because Project Karabusu is apparently the new game that's coming after Winds and Waves. Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about there, card above to that video. We don't know what that project entails and what it's going to be. And one idea that I had that I think would be rather interesting to explore this time around for Pokemon is, what if the next game after Winds and Waves is indeed a Legends game like we've been getting for the past two generations, but instead of revisiting an old region from the past, like we revisited Sinnoh in the past, and then we revisited the Kalos region 5 years after the original X and Y, what if we revisit whatever the Generation 10 region is post Winds and Waves? Whether it be that we go back to the past, whether it be we go into the future, or whether it be a direct sequel to Winds and Waves, this would be something that honestly I think no one would expect. And I think it'd be a rather interesting avenue for the Pokemon Company to explore. And you might be saying to yourself, Trainer DC, why would I want to explore this new region again right after I just explored it? Well, hear me out on this. I think it could be rather interesting for a few reasons. Number one, what it does from a developmental standpoint for Game Freak is, obviously Game Freak has struggled, is putting it nicely, over the past few generations when it comes to developing these games for the Nintendo Switch. So by them revisiting the region we're revisiting in Generation 10 for this new Legends game, that will streamline their development a lot, because you will be reusing a lot of the same assets given that it's the same general map layout. Maybe the map is going to be different given if it's in the past or the future, like we saw with the Hisui region versus the Sinnoh region, or even Lumio City versus the Lumio City we saw in X and Y. There are going to be changes, but what I'm saying here is if they do a Generation 10 sequel game in the form that I'm thinking they would do it in, it would streamline development a lot for them and really lessen their development time. Number two, why I think this would be a really interesting avenue to explore is because it brings back the idea of sequel games. The only two times we have gotten sequels within the Pokemon franchise is back in Generation 5 with Pokemon Black and White to Black and White 2. That was the first time that Pokemon had ever done sequel games. It really came out of left field because back then everyone was expecting Pokemon Gray to be the next mainline Pokemon game, but no, Game Freak decided to surprise everyone by making sequel games to the original Black and White, something that they have never done before. Fast forward to Generation 9 and we get Pokemon Legends ZA, which are serving as a sequel game to the original X and Y. For whatever reason, and this remains a mystery, I made a video recently on this topic, I'll leave a card up above to it, but for whatever reason, we don't really know why Pokemon Z was canceled back in the day. Again, check out that video if you want to hear me go in depth on that topic, as there's some speculation there as to what might have happened. But Pokemon X and Y were the first ever and only Pokemon games to this date that haven't gotten some sort of definitive edition, sequel, or DLC. We don't exactly know why that's the case, but they decided to correct that wrong by making Pokemon Legends ZA serve as a sequel to the original X X and Y. And I think that having a sequel game is a really cool idea within the Pokemon franchise. It's something that they really don't do often, and I find it rather interesting to see the evolution of not only the world itself, the region itself, but also the characters of that region. We saw in Pokemon Legends ZA a lot of characters return from the original X and Y. We saw AZ, who is now running a hotel. We saw that Lysander is now this wandering man after having these effects from the ultimate weapon kind of bestowed upon him as a curse. I thought that that was such an interesting avenue to explore in Pokemon Legends ZA, and to be honest with you, I feel like they didn't explore that enough with more characters. Like, obviously Mabel's the new professor, but what happened to Professor Sycamore? Where is Clement? He was the gym leader in Lumio City. Why isn't he involved in all that's going on here in Legends ZA? There are a lot of characters that were missing from Pokemon Legends ZA that I would have liked to have seen. So imagine that after we get Pokemon Winds and Waves, the next Legends game that takes place within the same region is serving as a direct sequel to Winds and Waves, with the world of Pokemon Winds and Waves evolving, whether that be going way into the future, 100 years into the future, or whether that be a sequel that's only 5 years after Pokemon Winds and Waves, who knows? But either way, I think that would be such an interesting concept to explore and an interesting avenue for them to go down with the next game following Winds and Waves. What they could even do is, we know from the leaks that Pokemon Winds and Waves is going to have to do with sustainability goals, right? Climate change, keeping the ecosystem and environment from going into disarray like we've seen with other Pokemon games, hint hint Pokopia. So what if the way that Pokemon Winds and Waves ends is in a positive? Maybe we defeat the evil team and we prevent them from destroying the ecosystem any further, but something happens post Winds and Waves that maybe there's a resurgence of said evil team, and what that then does is ends up destroying parts of the region. And then in Pokemon Legends Winds and Waves, whatever you want to call it, this sequel game that's going to come out in the form of a new Legends game, we see the effects that this has had on the region. We see how so many of the Pokemon that we saw in the original Winds and Waves have either died off or changed drastically, becoming new regional variants, or maybe Pokemon from other regions have migrated to the Winds and Wave region because of this new climate change. Or heck, maybe there are even brand new Pokemon in it of themselves that were introduced because of said climate change. This would be such a cool concept to explore. Imagine you're exploring Winds and Waves, you have this fresh in your mind of what this region is like because you just played through it. Then 2 years later, when the next Pokemon game comes out, it's a Pokemon Legends Winds and Waves that serves as a sequel, seeing the region drastically change due to the evil team succeeding in their plans post Winds and Waves. I think that would be such an interesting avenue for them to explore in the Pokemon game that comes after Winds and Waves. And quite frankly, as much as I would like to see them explore other regions that I love, like the Hoenn region, I'd love to see them go explore the Univers region and do the original Dragon and all of that. I would love to see a Legends Johto game, a Legends Alola game, Kanto, etc., etc. I can't lie to you and say that honestly, this might be the most intriguing avenue for them to explore. It would be something completely different from anything we've ever seen before in this franchise, and honestly would be a really cool way to distinguish Generation 10 from the generations that have come prior to it. Anyways, let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think about all this. What do you guys think about the idea of the next game after Winds and Waves being a Legends game taking place within the same region, serving as a sequel to Winds and Waves, where we see the evolution of the region, the characters, and even the ecosystem, and how maybe it's gone into disarray and there's new Pokemon. Some species have died off. We have regional variants, Pokemon from other regions migrating to this one. Do you like my idea, or do you hate it and would much prefer seeing a Pokemon Legends Johto, a Legends Univers, or something of the sort? Let me know down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this from Trainer DC. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.